Hey, good morning. Welcome to Jeremy's Journey. Come on inside and see what we got going on today. Every year, around the end of February, my boys and I go out for a winter camping trip. Usually with friends and family from Calgary, Edmonton, and other provinces, and sometimes from the United States. But this year, due to COVID, we had to go into the backwoods and have a little bit more of a away from everybody else kind of camping trip, and it was great. I love doing the backwoods, and I'll do it any day. So here's a look at our prep work before we go camping. This is us practicing our setup in the backyard just to make sure what we have is going to work. Because every year I take something new, I try to be more creative. And this year it was all from scratch. I know it doesn't look like much, but it's really fun to do. So I hope you enjoy. Here's the tarps that I'm using. They are former Canadian military shelter halves or pup tents. One piece can be for one man. Then along the edge, you got a zipper, and every time you zip them together, you can add another person. Basically from the intersect of the triangle on the end there, so flat to flat is about 9.5 feet, and it's about 5 feet wide. They got lots of grommets all over them. I have a whole bunch of them left over from a company I used to have, and I've never really found a good use for them until now. So this is what I think I'll do for the all the sides on this 10x10 shelter is I'll guy line them out, peg them down in the corners, and it adds a whole bunch of square footage. So that's going right here. So originally I was just going to keep them tight to the legs like that and wrap them around the leg, and then I have it wrapped around and tied at the back just like I do. There's a piece of paracord that ties these two pieces together. On the outside I did the same thing with the side flaps, and it makes a nice tight seal. So I might leave that like that, but at this end I wanted the doors there, and that a lot of the tarps come like that where the rubber backing is flaking off. I've got a couple that are relatively in good shape. That one's not in too good a shape, but that's the side I was going to put the fire on, my wood stove. I was going to put the stove jack right here in the middle somewhere and run the stove jack up. But after setting that up and seeing how it adds some square footage there, I might actually just do that on all the sides. Because at the end of the tarp you have your triangle piece, and when you pull that back you end up with an end like that. So you've basically got a spot for a cot right there, or you can snug a cot in a little bit more room, and then everybody has a little bit of space between their cot instead. I've left the shelter roof down. It's only about 4 feet from the edge of the tarp down. And about 6.5 feet in the center, so I can just barely stand up. I can stand up in the middle, no problem, but walking around I gotta squat down. Reason being, heat retention. The higher up I go, the more heat is just gonna be wasted at the top of the tent, and I want it down here where we are. And I might put another canvas tarp over the outside of this to kind of help insulate it a little bit. But this is my first trial at it, and I'm going to keep working on it over the next couple days to make sure I've got a nice warm comfy spot to go camping next weekend. So, but that's what an okay tarp looks like. That's actually considered okay, even though all that flakes off. This is better. I like the ones that are dark like this because it's still got patches and stuff of light coming through, but it's a really dark material, and that one's pretty good too. But yeah, they're not in perfect condition, but they're weatherproof, so that's a good thing. Here we are out in the tent. It's about -23 outside. Just trying to get the stove going here. I want to get this going, see how well it melts the snow in here, and what kind of temperature we can get it up to with just this little stove. See if it retains any heat in here, and yeah, see what I can do to make it better before I go camping. But that's my little stove. This is the galvanized steel pipe, 26 gauge that I'm using on the wood stove. And this is the zinc coating that I think it's fine once you burn it all off. From what I understand, it's fine. Anyway, so this is the glossy part that you're trying to burn off. and then it'll turn matte like this. While it's burning off, it basically will come right off. But you get a nice hot fire going, and just let her burn. I got 2 more pipe added on today, so I'm burning those off. I got a 10-foot stack plus stove, so we're almost 12 feet up. But that way it keeps it all nice away from the tent and cools it off as much as possible up top. And yeah, she's burning nice and hot, so there's not a lot of smoke coming out, but it helps burn off the coating really quick. It's a nice hot fire anyway. And I've got 3 guy lines holding this on. One to the left, one to the right, and then one out that way. And that's holding the chimney up, keeping it nice and vertical. And then at the base I have one right there. I have one hose clamp just holding it onto there. And yeah, it's solid steel behind it, 18 gauge steel, same stuff I used for the stove, so when I tighten up the hose clamp it's not being crushed. But yeah, a little fire. Last night I stayed up a little bit late. For this tarp, this is the one that goes over top of the wood stove, and I kind of borrowed one of my wife's silicone baking sheets or whatever they go, and they go on one of the cookie trays, and it's so your stuff doesn't stick. You can use them on the barbecue and stuff too. But I took one of those, made my 3-inch hole in the middle. I've already burnt it a little bit, but that's fine. That's what it's there for. What I did is, it's removable. Cut the hole in the tarp itself, relatively the right size, and then I actually took some of my duck canvas from a couple old pair of coveralls I had and folded it over and made it so I had a nice rigid seam or sturdy seam on this tarp, because if I just sew to the tarp it'll probably rip. And then I overlapped all the corners. I put the loop side of the Velcro onto here, and then over on here, just on both ends I put a piece of the canvas as well, because I made the hole a little bit too big. So that's the only reason that's on there. Otherwise it's stitched really well to the silicone sheet. And excuse my craftsmanship on the sewing machine, I'm definitely not wonderful at it. It's not straight, it's all messy, but it turned out okay. And I put the hook side onto here. So all I gotta do is try to do this with one hand. Don't know how, but whatever. It goes in there like that. That's how it's gonna go, just like that. Perfect. So that was for my chimney stack to go through, and it worked out really awesome. Now, this is a welder's fire blanket, and I use them all the time while I'm welding. And a couple of my friends and I had the great idea of using this around our stoves, which is good for a heat shield. But for one of my friends, I made something very similar to this out of one of these. I don't recommend it. As soon as you cut that, it goes all over the place. It's fiberglass. I'm going to be cleaning up the work area for a very long time. That stuff just went poof all over the place. And once you cut it, it's I don't even know how to explain it. It's not a binding weave. It slides back and forth all over the place. The panel I made him was for his ice hut, so he could run the chimney through one of the windows. And it was Velcroed on, very similar to this. I stitched Velcro onto it, and it turned out okay, but it was a very long process and very messy, and I don't recommend it. These cookie sheets or baking sheets. You can get them at the dollar store or at the Dollarama for $1.25, I think. Get those. They don't melt. If it's sitting right on the pipe, like this hasn't melted right through. That was because it got snagged. It discolored, but it's not like, it's just discolored. It's not burnt through whatsoever. This piece is just going to get torn off anyway. Yeah, like that. I just left these on to try to make a better weather seal, but I don't think it's really necessary. You could cut them off. Anyway, I'm not going to show it installed on the canopy, but you might see it in tomorrow's video with when we set up actual camp in the woods. So hopefully it works.